breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Good morning from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an amazing podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Dylan Rockford, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. We're going to get his reaction to what we've seen here in the first 2 months of the baseball season, some of the things that he's looking at in terms of betting board for this Monday, the way that he's breaking down some of these teams and some of the teams that he thinks might be able to rise up towards the, shall we say, summer months of the season. And we're also going to talk about the high amount of unders that we've been seeing in baseball recently as well. In the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @GUnit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire and whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While we did not get in any Twitter/X questions, everything, it is powered by EdgeBoost. EdgeBoost, making sure that bettors are able to access their funds 24/7, 365. It is an account that allows you to be able to make gambling-related transactions whenever and wherever. And when you go to edgeboost.bet, utilize the promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That gets you a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Sunday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The top over team in all of baseball played another over. The Chicago Cubs now 32 overs, 17 unders, and 4 pushes, and they do find a way to persevere and get the job done against the Reds by a count of 11-8. The Reds were up 5 runs at one point in this game, and that completely fell into the abyss. As for the Chicago Cubs, you had a home run off the bat of Seiya Suzuki off of Louis May for his 14th home run of the season. And how about what you were able to get out of Reese McGuire? First 2 home runs of the season as he goes deep off of Taylor Rogers along Nick Lodolo. For Lodolo, gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 innings, and then bullpen failed him from there. Scott Barlow gives up a run in an inning. Grant Mashcraft 3 runs allowed in his inning of work. Taylor Rogers, not a single out of the bullpen, allows a home run at 3 runs in total. Louis May gives up a home run in his inning of work. Brent Suter, a scoreless inning, and this was not what the Cubs were hoping for out of Ben Brown. He gives up 8 runs in 4 1/3 innings, but how about the bullpen from there? Ryan Brazier, Drew Pomeranz, Brad Keller, Daniel Palencia, all landing a scoreless inning, and Caleb Theobar, pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Derek Skubal, just absolutely amazing for the Detroit Tigers. 5-0 the final, a complete game, 13 strikeout shutout, gave up 2 hits in total, and for the Detroit Tigers, you had Zach McKinstry go deep off of Logan Allen, 3rd home run of the season for Allen. Rough start here, 5 runs, 4 of which weren't given up in 3 2/3 innings. Bullpen was fine. Jacob Junis, 2 1/3 innings scoreless, 2 scoreless innings out of Nick Enright, but Derek Skubal pretty unhittable, so nice win for the Tigers. This is something we haven't seen too much of. The Orioles won back-to-back games. They have been by far one of your least profitable teams in all of baseball. 5-1, they're able to take down the Boston Red Sox. As for the Red Sox, without Alex Bregman, they've been struggling a little bit on offense. They leave 9 men on base, and for Walker Buehler, gives up 2 runs over the course of 5 innings. Not a bad start here as he was taking deep once, going deep off of Dylan Carlson, first home run of the season, then Ryan O'Hearn off of Greg Weissert, his 8th home run of the campaign. Weissert gives up that home run in his inning of work. Zach Kelly gives up 2 runs, one of which was earned in his 2 innings of work. Liam Hendricks, a scoreless inning, but for Baltimore, Dean Kramer, he gives up 0 runs in 5 1/3 innings. Gregory Soto, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. Andrew Kittredge does allow a run in an inning, but Keegan Aiken, Brian Baker, they both supply a scoreless inning, so that gets the job done for them. The Pirates bullpen does not get the job done. They were able to exceed 4 runs for the 3rd time in their last 30 games, but they fall to the Brewers by a count of 6-5 as for the Brewers, they got a pretty solid start out of Logan Henderson. Allows a solo home run over the course of his 5 innings of work as Onyel Cruz gets his 11th home run on the campaign. From there, the bullpen was shaky. Jared Koenig, 2 runs allowed in 1 2/3 innings. Nick Mears gives up a pair of runs over the course of a 1/3 of an inning, but Abner Uribe, Trevor McGill, they both supply a scoreless inning. And for Pittsburgh, Bailey Falter, he does not live up to his name, but he really doesn't not live up to his name. 5 2/3 innings, 3 runs, 2 of which weren't. So. From there, you had 1 1/3 inning scoreless from Isaac Madsen, but then Ryan Brookie, 3 runs allowed in 2/3 of an inning before Chase Sugar gives you 4 outs out of the bullpen scoreless for the San Francisco Giants. They do find a way to persevere, and they get the job done against Washington Nationals. This by a count of 3-2, as for Robbie Ray, it was hip hip hooray, giving up 1 run in 6 innings. Did have Ryan Walker give up a run in an inning, but Randy Rodriguez, Tyler Rogers, they both supply a scoreless inning. And then you had Mr. Huff, Puff, and Blow Your House Down Sam Huff get his second home run of the campaign. That comes off of Mike Soroka, gives up 3 runs in 6 innings. From there, Brad Lord, 2 scoreless innings. Cole Henry was able to supply a scoreless inning as well. The Kansas City Royals have been one of your top under teams in all of baseball. 18 overs, 35 unders, and a push, and they play a 2-1 game against the Twins, which a win. As for Chris with K. Bubich, he continues to be amazing. 1 run allowed in 7 innings, 9 punch-outs. From there, you had Carlos Estevez along Jonathan Bolin combined for 2 scoreless innings. Taylor Clark, he lends a scoreless inning. And for Minnesota, this was a good start from Bailey Over. Gives up 1 run in 6 2/3 innings. Louis Varland, 1 1/3 innings scoreless. Cole Sands, a scoreless inning, but Yohan Duran, unearned run, give it up in the 10th inning. So the Royals do find a way to persevere. Top under team in all of baseball is actually the Texas Rangers. 17 overs, 36 unders, and a push, but they went overwhelming in the 9th inning against the White Sox. 5-4 the final is. They entered into the 9th inning down by a count of 3-2, but they were able to score on an error. And for the Texas Rangers, Patrick Corbin, not great, not terrible. 3 runs allowed in 5 1/3 innings. Allowed a pair of home runs, as you had Miguel Vargas get home run number 7 of the season. Then you were able to get home run number 2 off of Austin Slater. You did have from there Robert Garcia give up a run in an inning, but bullpen was pretty rock solid. Luke Jackson, Jacob Latz both give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Sean Armstrong, 1 1/3 inning scoreless, and Jake Berger was able to go yard off of Davis Martin. 7th home run season for Martin. Gives up 2 runs in 6 innings. Miguel Castro Cambuser, they both on a scoreless inning, but then Jordan Leisure, 3 runs, 2 of which were earned, giving up in his inning work. So that was pretty rough for them. The St. Louis Cardinals have been a pretty solid team. 4-3, they take down the Arizona Diamondbacks, as Diamondbacks fall below 500 with Brandon Pfaadt battling through 5 2/3 innings, allows 3 runs, including a home run, as Mason Wynn gets his 6th home run of the campaign. From there, Kevin Ginkel gives up a run in 2/3 of an inning. Jalen Beeks pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless, and then you had a scoreless inning out of Juan Barrio. But for the Arizona Diamondbacks, they strand 9 men on base. For Sonny Gray, does give up 3 runs in 6 innings, but bullpen has his back. Phil Matone, John King, Jojo Romero, they're all able to end a scoreless inning. For just the 6th time this year, the Rockies lose a game by 1 run. Now 9-44 this season, 5-4. The Yankees do get the job done, as Luke Weaver gives up a solo home run in the 9th inning to Mickey Moniak, 4th home run season that allows for the run line cover, and Will Warren lasts just 4 innings, gives up 2 runs, long rain delay in this one that forced out the starters. Jonathan Loaiska, a run allowed in 1 2/3 innings. Mark Leiter Jr., 1 1/3 innings scoreless, and Devin Williams a scoreless inning. No home runs for the Yankees, but they do get to Antonio Senzatello, gives up 4 runs in 4 1/3 innings. From there, the bullpen wasn't bad. Tyler Kinley gives up a run in an inning, but Jake Berg give you an out of the bullpen scoreless. Jimmy Erga, 1 2/3 innings scoreless, actually 2 1/3 innings scoreless, and Seth Alverson, a scoreless inning of his own, but damage had been done. For the San Diego Padres, they do some damage to the Atlanta Braves, 5-3. They're able to get the job done in this one, as for Atlanta, they had a tough time getting to the bullpen after giving Dylan Cease a bit of a ride. 3 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings, but Jeremiah Estrada, Audrey Motojon, Jason Adam, Robert Suarez all end a scoreless inning. And for the San Diego Padres, how about the home runs coming out for them? Manny Machado, 5th home run season. Jake Cronenworth, 4th home run of the campaign. Gavin Sheets, his 10th. As for Gavin Sheets, he goes deep off of Spencer Schmallenbach, who punched out 11, but in 7 innings gives up 4 runs, 2 of which were earned, including a pair of bombs. Dylan Lee gives up a home run, a solo shot in his inning of work, and the Pierce Johnson, a scoreless inning of his own. You had lots of scoreless innings by the Miami Marlins, 3-0. They shut down the LA Angels, so the Angels, after an 8-game win streak, back-to-back losses, as Edward Cabrera, 10 punch-outs in 5 2/3 innings scoreless. Anthony Bender, 1 1/3 innings scoreless. Calvin Fauché, Ronnie Enriquez, both lend a scoreless inning. And for the LA Angels, not the world's worst start from Kyle Hendricks, 3 runs allowed in 6 innings. From there, you had Connor Brogdon lend a scoreless inning. Jake Eater, 2 scoreless innings, but absolutely nothing doing at the plate for them. We saw an under out there in Sacramento, a rarity, 5-4. The Athletics are able to get the job done over the Phillies. For the Phillies, Jesus Luzardo gives up 3 runs in 7 innings, gave them all up in the first inning. As for the A's, it was Jacob Wilson getting his 6th home run of the campaign. Gunnar Hoglund, he gave up 3 runs in 5 innings, and then Hogan Harris gives up a home run in 2 1/3 innings, going deep. 8 for the Phillies. Trey Turner down for fifth home run in the campaign, but Matt Strom, a little bit of a shaky 8th inning, gives up 2 runs over the course of an inning, so that was what sealed his fate. And then Mason Miller scoreless inning, Tyler Ferguson, and out of the bullpen scoreless. You saw quite a few, shall we say, blowouts on this day as well. And one of the big ones, how about the Tampa Bay Rays? 13-0. They just completely lambasted the Toronto Blue Jays. For the Jays, Chris Bassett taking hook, line, and sinker, giving up 5 runs over the course of 4 innings. He did allow a home run to Brandon Lau, 10th home run season, and then Curtis Mead, 3rd home run season. That comes off of the long reliever and Paxton Schultz, who gave up 4 unearned runs in his 3 innings of work as Mason Fluharty came in out of the bullpen. He gave up 4 runs and did not get a single out. That was not great. And Michael Stefaniak, the backup infielder, he was able to pitch a scoreless inning. Meanwhile, for the Rays, this is what you were looking for out of Ryan Pepiot, 7 scoreless innings. Eric Orze along Cole Sulzer, both able to lend a scoreless inning. You were able to get a lot of scoreless innings from the Houston Astros late in their game against the Seattle Mariners, 5-3. Houston is able to get the job done as Seattle scores 3 runs in the first 3 innings, but then shut down as you did have 3 runs given up in 5 innings by Colin Gordon, but Sean Dubin was able to give you 1 2/3 innings scoreless. Brian King, 1 1/3 innings scoreless. Caleb Ort, a scoreless inning. And for Seattle, this was a so-so start from Luis Castillo. 3 runs allowed over the course of 6 innings. Carlos Vargas, a scoreless inning. Colin Snyder, Matt Brash, they combined for a scoreless inning, but Casey Lugumina gives up 2 runs, including the walk-off home run to Christian Walker in the 9th inning. That is home run number 6 of the campaign for him. And if you're looking at where we're getting trend-wise right now in baseball, it has been a lot of unders, and we're going to be talking about that with Dylan Rockford in the next segment. But I mean, overall for the season, the under rate is hovering right around about 53.4%, 404 unders, 353 overs, and favorites on the money line hitting at 58.2% for the season, 457 and 320. But if you look at the last 7 days in baseball, been rough for favorites, 47 and 44 on the money line. Meanwhile, the under has been very profitable, 53 unders at 38 overs. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we're all getting trend-wise. Coming up next, how about if we do talk with that man, Dylan Rockford, about what we're seeing in baseball right now, the games from Monday, and so much more right here on the Baseball Betting Show. Myself, Greg Peterson, now about the VSiN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast, and it's great to be joined by this man as Dylan Rockford does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, taking a look at this great game of baseball that we all know and love. But on top of that, I know that he does a lot with the fight game with Axe Kicks Picks. I know that he does the Dream Wager as well. That's a little bit of a all-encompassing podcast. And here, we'll follow my Twitter/X at Rock with 2Ks and number 24 altogether. And Dylan, it's great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Always glad to join you.
Always glad to have you aboard. And Dylan, we are now at Memorial Day, which is pretty much, for a lot of people, the marker that you take a look at to determine, all right, is this really real? And what is it really fake? And just coming up at Memorial Day, what have been some of the biggest surprises for you thus far this season?
I think one of the biggest surprises for me is that as it's getting warmer, especially out here on the East Coast, we've been seeing a lot of unders as well. It's a little colder. It hasn't gotten to that 70, 80 degree weather. And we saw in last night's game in New York with the Dodgers and the Mets, a lot of these balls that in mid-July, early August, they're long gone. So obviously the story with Juan Soto here, I know a lot of people are very impatient here with Juan Soto, but I think he's been one of the very unlucky batters in all of baseball. But outside of that, I think the Royals, them being 29-15 and being not a really good offense, they struggle on the road. I think that's kind of impressive. It's good to see that the Detroit Tigers are in first place. I know they didn't have a really good series against the Guardians over the weekend, and I think the Phillies are one of the hottest teams right now. Unfortunately, 9-1 in their last 10. They're in first place after kind of a slow start to the beginning of the year. But I think those would be my biggest takeaways so far.
Yep, absolutely. I think that those are all very good ones. And I have to throw this one in here as well. We knew that the Rockies were going to be bad. We knew that they were going to be up against it. And the fact that we're coming up on Memorial Day with them having won 9 more games than the two of us, how do we even fade this team at this point? Because it's getting so expensive to be even taking the run lines.
Yeah, we got to be tricky and try to find value in some way, either player props, maybe the opposing team total over, but even that is getting expensive. I know we do the MLB show on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, and sometimes we just take alternate lines. Like -2.5 is, and you're only getting like +110, +115 sometimes. So you're going to have to be tricky and kind of creative with the ways you're playing the Rockies. But let's be honest, Greg, they're a AAA team. They're not good right now.
Are they even a AAA team?
I think that was me trying to be a little generous right now. But they did just get a win over the weekend, and then they followed up by losing by maybe 2 touchdowns by the Yankees. So, yeah, it's a bad team, but I think we got to find ways to try to fade them, because they're just going to be a continuous fade. And I know last year and previous years, they were bad on the road, but sometimes we would find value at home at Coors Field with teams traveling to elevation and kind of being tricky. But I don't think that's the case this year, honestly.
Yeah, it's been so brutal to say the least. And to your point about them on the road, 3-22 this year. We don't have the total up in Chicago right now because of the whole win situation. So it's really hard to know what ways we might be able to find a little bit of value there. But I think that it is interesting what we're going to be getting on Monday. As joining me, we've got Dylan Rockford of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And I recognize that the Orioles won a pair of games over the weekend, but they just seem like a badly overvalued team. Charlie Morton is in a pick'em game against the St. Louis Cardinals with Eric Fetty going. Am I out of line here by saying that the Orioles are being badly overpriced, or do you find a little bit of value here with the Cardinals on this rather pick'em line?
Yeah, I don't understand the line at all, if I'm being honest. My numbers made the Cardinals a -140 favorite. I was able to get a -120 earlier in the day. And Orioles, I know they won a few games here over the weekend against the Red Sox. They are dealing with the Alex Bregman injury, but the Orioles have literally lost every single game Uncle Charlie has made for the club this year. There's no way I could back them. And honestly, Eric Fetty has been solid on the road for the Cardinals. He's only given up 2 runs on the road in his last 20 and 2/3 inning. They have the better offense. They're averaging 4.73 runs per game on the road. And even if Uncle Charlie happens to have a decent outing, when he's out of there, he's backed up by a bottom 5 bullpen. There's no way I could back the Orioles here. So, yeah, I'm on the Cardinals money line here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I just have not understand the pricing the last few months for the Orioles. It's not like it's some big giant public team or anything like that. So that I think is very interesting. This one I think is going to be a rather fun one though, because we've got the Reds and the Kansas City Royals. Right now with the Royals, they're about a -120 favorite, total of 8. I want to get your thoughts here because with the Royals, they have been just such a good under team this year. Not necessarily the biggest fan of Michael Lorenzen, but for the Cincinnati Reds, have a little bit of concern with them after their bullpen just got lit ablaze on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, the Royals on the money line has good value at -118. Again, numbers made the Royals a -140 favorite, but honestly, the total was one of my favorite plays for tomorrow. Under 8.5. I do see 8.5s out there at -124, so shop around. My total came out to 7.9. Michael Lorenzen is just a totally different pitcher at home than he is on the road. Only 2 runs given up in 19 innings, and all 3 of his home starts have gone under this total. And Nick Martinez, I kind of was on the fence with him, but the month of May, he's looked extremely serviceable. 1.80 ERA, he doesn't walk batters, and his last 7 starts have gone under this total. So 2 underwhelming offenses, and this is the caveat. You have the winds blowing 13-mile-an-hour winds blowing in tomorrow afternoon as well. So I'm on the under 8.5. That's my favorite play in this game.
Absolutely. If you can get an 8.5, I do think that there's some very rock solid value there, as there's always value with getting this man aboard and Dylan Rockford right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And then I think that this one is interesting because you mentioned it. Red Sox a little bit rough over the weekend. Right now they're about a -150 favorite with Garrett Crochet going on the road against Chad Patrick in a total of 7.5. Crochet has been very rock solid. The question is, what are we going to get out of this Red Sox offense that they just had a tough time in those final 2 games generating much in terms of run production?
Yeah, honestly, it should be a good pitching matchup. I think Chad Patrick has been solid at home, and we all know how good Garrett Crochet has been on the road. My numbers only made him a -130 favorite here. The Sox, they're an under 500 team right now on the road, while the Brewers, they're backable at home. But I guess just trusting my eye and watching this Brewer team, I really don't like what I've seen out of them, especially over the weekend against the Pirates, who kind of been playing some competitive baseball. I don't want to back either side here. If anything, I would kind of take the Brewers team total under like around 3.5, 4. Garrett Crochet hasn't allowed more than 2 runs on the road all season. The Brewers in general, they're only averaging 3.76 runs per game at home. They're hitting 219 at home, and they're only hitting 222 against lefties. I actually like backing them on the road as opposed to home. So I think it's going to be a tough go offensively for this Brew crew. So I would attack the team total under for the Brewers. That's kind of how I would play this game.
I like that approach, and with regards to Sunday Night Baseball, we're doing this before we know the final of the LA Dodgers and the New York Mets, but I always find it interesting, these teams that play on Sunday Night Baseball and have to turn around on Monday, and I think both are overvalued. With the Mets, right now they're minus $3 favorites against the White Sox, and I recognize that Adrian, don't call him Doogie Howser, not necessarily the Mona Lisa Vito of pitching, but I'm not willing to lay minus $3 there, and Yoshinobu Yamamoto is dominant for the Dodgers, but right now, minus 190 road favorites against the Cleveland Guardians. I think both of these teams coming off of Sunday Night Baseball are just a little bit too lofty in terms of their value.
100%. I'll start with this Mets White Sox game. I'm going to go with another total under 8.5. The White Sox simply can't score on the run. They're averaging 2.88 runs per game on the road. And I know they picked him up. It was a late addition, but Adrian Howard, I mean, got to give him credit where it's due. He looked pretty decent in his first start versus the Mariners. He went 6 scoreless innings. The game ended 2-0. And, you know, you and I and me and my co-host on the MLB Gambling Podcast, we talk about fading teams that play on Sunday Night Baseball. Regardless that there's no travel situation involved here, there are going to be some sluggish bats on the Mets. They've been a dead under team this whole year. So I think it continues tomorrow. I do think they're mispriced. I only made the Mets a minus 190 favorite, getting plus 240. The value is definitely with the White Sox, but I don't know if I would take that. I actually like the under a little more. My total, like I said, my total came out to 7.9. So I would take the under there. And for the Dodgers and Guardians game, I mean, Gavin Williams has looked solid in the month of May. He's only given up more than 2 runs one time in his last 6 starts. Dodgers, they're going to be traveling from New York to Cleveland. They're going to probably be getting around into Cleveland around 2-3 in the morning. Their bats are going to be sluggish as well. And on the road, they're only hitting 246. Guardians have been playing good baseball. They just had a nice series against the Tigers, taking 3 of 4 from them. And they're solid at home, 14-8. I only made the Dodgers a minus 130 favorite. So getting a plus 160, plus 165, the value is definitely with the Guardians.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I always find it to be interesting to see those teams on Sunday Night Baseball, how they're going to perform on Monday, and I think both of these teams are going to be affected, so I'm right there with you. And is there anything else with regards to this board that we've got for Monday that is standing out to you, whether that be a team that you want to bet, player prop, anything of that nature?
Yeah, there was one game that actually stood out to me. It's between the Twins and the Rays, and to be honest, it's a matchup between Chris Paddock and Zach Littell. And to be honest, Greg, I think the wrong team is favored here. My numbers made the Twins a minus 120 favorite. Zach Littell, 0-3 at home this season. He has a 4.33 ERA. He gives up the deep ball a little too much for my liking. He's given up 2+ runs in 6 straight starts. I know they swept the Blue Jays over the weekend, but I don't like this offense for the Rays either. They're only averaging 3.85 runs per game at home this season. Minnesota, simply put, is just a better team. They have the better pitcher in Paddock. He's backed up by a top 5 bullpen, and they have the better lineup. I think they could go toe-to-toe with the Rays as well. So plus 106 I'm seeing. I think the wrong team is favored. I'll take the Twins here.
Hey, I'm right there with you. I made the Twins a favorite myself, so great minds think alike, Dylan, and I know that you're doing an absolutely tremendous job on so many fronts over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, taking a look at baseball, taking a look at the fight game, and so much more. So let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you, and now people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, you guys can follow me on X at Rock with 2Ks24. We got the NBA playoffs continuing. The finals coming up very soon. We got the NHL playoffs. We had a week off in the fight game, but we're locked and loaded right at the Apex next week as well. And the baseball, we are just locked and loaded every single day. And Greg, we need more day baseball. I know it's Memorial Day and we're going to have some day baseball, but there needs to be at least one day baseball game every day. Am I crazy for thinking that?
Oh, absolutely. It's why I post on my Twitter/X feed every single time we don't. The old John Giamatti introducing Ludacris, saying, once again, Ludacris, every single time we don't have a day baseball game. It grinds my gears. It makes me very upset. So I am right there with you. Thank goodness we have it on Monday. I think Tuesday might be a little bit more rough. So we need to get on that Major League Baseball. And if I were running Major League Baseball, I would certainly want Dylan Rockford on my team. He knows this game. He knows the fact that we need day baseball. And every single time he joins me, he lends such great insight. So big thanks to Dylan for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VC Family Podcast. And coming next, it is that time on the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here, lovely Las Vegas, for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family podcast. Always great to be joined by Dylan Rockford. He does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and did so once again today. So big thanks to Dylan for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at gunit_81. We're going to be going in the Las Vegas Station, or this is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So how about if we do get things started with 901, 902 on the betting board. The Colorado Rockies are on the road against the Chicago Cubs. James Taillon is on the bump for the Cubs. Carson Palmquist is on the bump for the Rockies. Currently, the only thing up is the money line because it's a Wrigley Field game, so based on the wind with regards to the total, but right now seeing an opener of the Cubs being right around about a minus 315 on the money line, plus 270, plus 275, that number on Colorado, and unless if the run line gets past minus 185, I'm going to be in on some sort of a run line for the Cubs. I'll probably lay minus 2.5 on the Cubs. This is a Rockies team that is just a disgrace of all disgraces, and now you've got Carson Palmquist, a guy who was pitching a few years at Miami, hoping and praying to be able to give this team anything whatsoever, and he's already made a few starts, and it's not been bueno, to say the least. He has made 2 starts, he has lasted 8 1/3 innings, and he has given up 12 runs, 11 of which have been earned, and he has been banged around like a human piñata. And despite giving up so many runs, that means that he's faced so many guys. He's got 2 strikeouts in these 8 1/3 innings as well. Not great. Not great. And then for James Taillon, has he been the Mona Lisa Vito pitching this season? Not really. 4.13 ERA. And he hasn't been great. He hasn't been terrible. Not necessarily a strikeout artist. 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. Has given up 2.2 home runs per 9 innings. A lot of that, I think that there was a start against the Mets where he gave up like 4 bombs or something like that. So had a little bit of a rough go of it there. But this is a Colorado Rockies team that not only are they bad at hitting on the road, they're really bad at hitting on the road. How about hitting below the Mendoza line of 200 when they're away from home? Just absolutely no power whatsoever with this team. You've been able to get a little bit of something out of Hunter Goodman. He's been able to give you on the road 5 home runs thus far this season, so he's shown a little bit of promise there. Jordan Beck overall, 8 home runs, but most of those have come at home. But, there's just so many guys that you take a look at, and they're just incapable of hitting away from Coors Field. And even at Coors Field, they weren't even very good. So, that context needs to be thrown in there, as this is a bunch that has all these guys currently hitting a $167 or lower. Jacob Stallings, Sean Borchard, Brenton Doyle, Ryan McMahon, Adel Amader, who I think they threw his glove at a fly ball a few days ago. That's how bad it is. And then for the Colorado Rockies, their bullpen honestly is a little bit below average. It could be worse. You've got Zach Ognos, Jake Bird, who have both been able to supply a sub-2 ERA. Jimmy Ergett has been able to give you a few good innings, but when you get into Anel Shavili, Scott Alexander with a 6+ ERA, not necessarily so great. And for the Chicago Cubs, they did have to use up quite a few bullpen pieces yesterday. This has been a bullpen that has been a little bit shaky, though Daniel Palencia along Drew Pomeranz have been able to supply a sub-3 ERA. You've had a few guys that have been a little bit shaky out there in the bullpen as well. I don't know what you're going to be able to get out of Chris Flexen. So far so good, but it's a small sample size. Julian Merriweather, Ryan Presley have both been posting up north of 5 ERA, but this team is number 1 in the big leagues in terms of run creation, and they are scoring north of 6 runs per contest. We saw that on display yesterday. You've got currently Dansby Swanson, C.A. Suzuki, Kyle Tucker, Pete Crow Armstrong. I'll give you at least 11 home runs. Crow Armstrong, Tucker, and Suzuki all hitting at least at 260 for this unit, and then you've got a Nico Horner hitting about at 300, Carson Kelly, 9 home runs at about 100 at-bats. These guys are just firing all cylinders. I did say I told 7.6. Wind is going to be blowing in about 10 miles per hour, and I don't know if the Rockies can even get to 2 runs. I think that this is going to be the Cubs winning this game by multiple runs. I'm going to be laying their run line, and at a 7.5 or less, and on the over 8 or higher, the under 903, 904 on the betting board. The Arizona Diamondbacks are going to be playing us to the Pittsburgh Pirates, as you've got Mr. Andrew Heaney on the bump for Pittsburgh, and it is Ryan Nelson who goes for Arizona. Right now, with Arizona, you're going to be finding them as a pretty sizable favorite, right around about minus 170, minus 180, plus 150 to plus 155. That number on Pittsburgh, and we're seeing an opening total of a 9.5, under at a minus 125, and the over is at a plus 105, and with the Arizona Diamondbacks. If you're able to get a plus 115 run line, right now I am seeing a plus 115. I would be willing to take a shot on that run line for Ryan Nelson. He hasn't necessarily been able to post up the lowest ERA or anything like that, but he's got some promising stuff. He's been a long reliever throughout much of the season. I believe that this is either start number 2 or start number 3 for him, but he's been able to go out there and consistently give you 3-4 solid innings. Right now, give you 355 fielding dependent with that 460 ERA, 8.5 strikeouts to 3.2 walks per 9 innings, and gets a face off against the Pittsburgh Pirates team that all of a sudden has been able to give you a little bit more offense. They have scored more than 4 runs in 3 out of their last 4 games after they hadn't done so for 26 straight games, and Oneil Cruz has been very good for this lineup. He's been able to supply the team with 10 plus home runs. He's right now supplying you with north of a 350 on base, and Andrew McCutchen has been able to give you a 360 plus on base as well, but you just have so many guys that are just giving you nothing at the bottom lineup. Henry Davis, Eddie Rodriguez, Jared Trollo, Alex Canario, Emmanuel Valdez, Brian Reynolds, all hitting at 215 or lower. Reynolds has a little bit of power, but man, it's been a rough season for him. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, they used up a lot of their good bullpen pieces yesterday as well against the Brewers, where they let that thing go down the toilet bowl, so less than savory there. You've had Ryan Baruchi be able to give you a sub-4 ERA. Chase Shoger, Caleb Ferguson have been relatively okay, and I like what I've seen out of Dennis Santana this year, but David Bednar, north of a 5 ERA. You've got Isaac Madsen, who's not really going to be holding down the fort. Colin Holderman's now in the injured list after he was absolutely terrible, and for the Arizona Diamondbacks, this is a bottom 10 team. With regards to bullpen ERA, you've had pair of guys in Shelby Miller along Jalen Beeks supply sub 3.5 ERA, and just now coming off the injured list, one of their more trustworthy guys, as you've now got Justin Martinez back, and they're getting Kendall Graben back in the fold as well, so they should be a little bit better moving forward, and that means that they have to rely less on guys like Juan Barilla along with Ryan Thompson. But dating back to the beginning of the 2024 campaign, this is a Diamondbacks team that ranks in the top 3 in terms of run creation, and have a pair of guys with 14 plus home runs this season, Corbin Carroll along with Eugenio Suarez. Now they've struggled a little bit with a few guys in terms of average, as Suarez, he's starting to pick it up a little bit, but still hitting about a 230. Lourdes Gurriel has been a little bit hot and cold at the plate, but Josh Chandler's giving you about a 350 on base. Getting back Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte, 380 on base. That's rock solid. Geraldo Perdomo has been able to give you about a 400 on base as well. That said, I do think that for the Arizona Diamondbacks, offense is going to be relatively solid in this one. You just don't know about that bullpen pitching, but I think that Ryan Nelson going to be able to go out there, get the job done against a guy in Andrew Heaney who has experienced a little bit of a renaissance this season, but I don't know how long lasting it's going to be. His strikeout numbers are pretty much at a career low. Typically, he's sitting right around about 9.5 or so strikeouts per 9 innings this season for Heaney, more around about 6.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, and 3.5 walks per 9 innings is actually very high for him as well. 291 ERA, but a 403 fielding independent. So I do think that for the Arizona Diamondbacks, they're going to do a nice job getting to him here. I did set my total at a 9.2, so at the 9. I like the over, and with the Arizona Diamondbacks, if I'm able to get right around about a plus 115 on that run line, I'm going to be willing to take a shot there. 905, 906 on the betting board. You've got the Miami Marlins, and they're going to be on the road against the Slam Diego Padres. We know that Ryan Weathers is on the bump for Miami. Right now, it is undecided for the San Diego Padres, so this game is off the board. In the places I was looking, they were showing Randy Vasquez, and if we do get old Randy going up against Ryan Weathers, I'd be setting the Padres at a minus 182 on the money line, plus 108 or higher. Would take a look at their run line and made a total to where an 8 or less. I'm in on the over, 8.5 or higher, the under. You've actually got a halfway decent starter here in Ryan Weathers, who ironically enough used to be a part of the San Diego Padres organization. They drafted him very, very young, and he just wasn't able to develop with them. And I mean, over the last few seasons, his swing and miss stuff is up. He's made 2 starts this far this season, and in those 2 starts, a combined 10 innings, has allowed 2 runs, 9 punch-outs, has looked pretty rock solid. I don't think that he goes out there, lights the world on fire, but compared to what you're getting out of the rest of the Miami Marlins, it's pretty darn good. And then on the flip side, if you do get Randy Vasquez, right now he's giving up more walks than he's getting strikeouts, and he's somehow, someway just been able to keep the ball in the yard. 5 strikeouts, 4.8 walks per 9 innings, 349 ERA, 508 fielding independence, so that's been interesting. Somehow, someway has given up 2 earned runs or fewer in each out of the last 4 starts, and that's coming up against like the LA Angels on the road against the Blue Jays. It's been a little bit of a, shall we say, weaker stretch, but I mean, still, somehow, someway, he's been able to get the job done. But for the San Diego Padres, I do think that they're going to be able to get to Weathers a little bit here, and then they dive into a bullpen that is in the bottom 10 in the big leagues. In terms of ERA, Calvin Fauché has been giving you north of 5 ERA. Anthony Bender has been rock solid, but they had to use him up yesterday, so that's a little bit of an issue. And they've been dealing with the injury to Andrew Nardi, which has not been great. Ronnie Enriquez, sub 3.5 ERA, but Jesus Sunoco's not a guy that I trust in. And for the Miami Marlins, you just don't have a great lineup in general. Now you've got Xavier Edwards on the injured list along Dane Myers, 2 of your best guys in terms of moving the line. Kyle Stowers has been able to give you 10 home runs, nearly a 385 -5 on base, and you've got a little bit of power out of Matt Mervis, but he's hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. You've got Javier Sanjoa, who after a good start to the season, he's been regressing. Augustin Ramirez at the catcher spot has actually been pretty solid. 6 home runs, hitting about a 250, but all in all, it's a lineup that I really don't have a lot of faith in. And then on the flip side for the San Diego Padres, really guys not named Fernando Tatis Jr. has have a little bit of tough time being able to hit the deep ball for Tatis Jr., 10 plus home runs. He's been able to give you darn near 400 on base, but then you take a look at the rest of these guys, and they're moving the line. Like Gavin Sheets has 9 home runs. He's been solid for the team, hitting for about a 325 on base. Nobody else entering into yesterday with north of 4 home runs. As you've got so many guys like Jackson Merrill, Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado sitting between 3 and 4 bombs, but I mean for Machado, he's sitting for about a 390 on base. Luis Arias is hitting just below 300. You got Jackson Merrill hitting north of 300. So these guys have been able to do a solid job there, and they're getting back Jake Cronenworth as well. But for the Padres, this is a very lethal bullpen. So even if you don't get a good start out of Randy Vasquez or wherever it starts in this, you've got guys like a Jason Adam, Robert Suarez, Yuki Matsui, who've all been able to give you a sub 275. Adrian Morejon has been a pretty good long guy for the team as well. So I do think that they should be able to go out there, get a relatively convincing win. I'm willing to go up to a minus 181 on that Padres money line. Run line I set at a plus 108, and then if you're looking plus 183 or higher would be my buy point on the Marlins with a total of 8 or less to the over, 8.5 or higher, the under. 907, 908 on the betting board. The Toronto Blue Jays are going to be on the road against the Walker Texas Rangers. Jacob deGrom is on the bump for the Rangers, and Kevin Gausman goes for Toronto. Toronto is a underdog of anything between plus 130 to plus 136, minus 150 to minus 155. That number on the Texas Rangers. 7.5 is the total. The under is minus 115 to minus 120. Over is between even minus 105. You're looking at the run line of Texas. That's between plus 135 to a plus 140, and set the Rangers minus 167 on the money line. Need at least a plus 120 to take a shot on the run line, and I'm going to be willing to take that shot on the run line. Rangers finally got a little bit of offense going against the Chicago White Sox. Granted, it's the Chicago White Sox, so there's that aspect of things, but I do think that there's a little bit of positivity here coming for the Texas Rangers. I feel like I've said it all season long, but being able to get Evan Carter back in the fold, I think is going to be able to help this team out a bit. You've got a few guys that they just need to give you a little bit more. Kyle Higashioka, Adolis Garcia, Marcus Semien, Ezekiel Duran, throwing their Jock Peterson, all these guys in a 220 or lower, but Wyatt Langford is able to give you about a 326 on base, 8 plus homers out of him. The Joshes, Josh Smith, Josh Young, both hitting above a 270. These guys have been rock solid, and you've got a bunch on the flip side for the Toronto Blue Jays, which they're just not giving you any sort of power whatsoever. Like for the Blue Jays, you've got plenty of guys that do a nice job finding a way on base. Flagler Jr., he's down only to about 7 home runs this season, but it still give you about a 380 on base. You got Nathan Lukes, who's been able to give you a 360 on base. George Springer, 360 on base. You've been able to get Bo Bichette on, hitting at 275, but just nobody's hitting the deep ball. Dalton Varsho, who's been out for like 30 games this year, is right now leading the team in homers with 7, so that's not where you want to be. Where the Blue Jays had to use up quite a bit of that bullpen yesterday because Chris Bassett got lit up like a Christmas tree. Mason Fluharty has been pretty solid, but he had a rough go of it yesterday. He's up to nearly a 4 ERA. Jeff Hoffman has been all sorts of inconsistent. Yimi Garcia has been able to give you a sub 350 ERA, so he's been pretty rock solid. And then on the flip side for the Texas Rangers, it is a hit or miss bullpen of their own. You've been dealing with a few injuries, the likes of Luke Jackson and company, but I have liked what I've seen out of Robert Garcia. He's been able to give you a sub 250 ERA. Now you've got John Armstrong starting to regress, but Holby Milner has been able to give you a few solid innings as well. So I do think that this is an interesting circumstance with a guy in DeGrom who he's starting to look like the Jacob deGrom that we all know and love. Gave up a few deep balls in the first 2 starts of the season, but ever since then, this guy has been dialed the heck in. Right now, a 233 ERA. Fielding depends a little bit higher because of those home runs they gave up in his first 2 starts of the season, but I've loved what I've seen out of him. He's given up a combined 5 runs over the course of his last 5 starts. And for Kevin Gausman, coming off of a really nice last start that he was able to deliver, and for him overall this season, 403 ERA, right around about a 337 fielding depend, though, giving up 1 home run, 2 walks per 9 innings, and has been just all over the place. In his last 5 starts, he has given up 6, 0, 3, 6, and 0 runs. So you either get really good Kevin Gausman or you get really bad Kevin Gausman. I think that he's going to be pretty rock solid here, though. Set my total at 7.3. I do like the under, and for the Rangers, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on that run line. 909, 910 on the betting board. The Tampa Bay Rays play out to the Minnesota Twins. Chris Paddock is on the bump for the Twins, and Zach Little hopes to come up big for Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is a favorite of any team minus 118 to a minus 125, between plus 102 to a plus 109 is that number on Minnesota. 9 is the total. The under is minus 115. The over is minus 105. And for the Rays, I did set them as a a underdog of plus 111. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the Twins money line. For Chris Paddock, he has really been able to be dialed in. He had that rough first start of the season where he gets banged around like a piñata. He gives up 9 runs, but ever since then, 3 runs or fewer allowed in each out of his last 9 starts, 2.22 ERA in his past 8 starts. That does come with closer to a 3.75 fielding pennant, as he's been giving up quite a bit more than a home run per 9 innings. But Zach Little's doing for some regression too. 4.25 ERA, but a 5.42 fielding dependent, as he's allowing 2.1 home runs per 9 innings. Now, the Minnesota Twins a little bit down with their lineup. They've been dealing with Byron Buxton being out due to concussion / being on the 7-day injured list, so that's been a little bit less than amazing. But you've had a few guys be able to step up. Brian Jeffers has now been able to supply the team with 7 home runs, doing a solid job hitting at 275. You could use a bit more out of Royce Lewis since he's come back. He has not been himself at 222 on base, and Carlos Correa still giving you only about a 277 on base, not necessarily supplying a lot of power, but Brooks Lee has been able to move the line. Harrison Bader up to about a 360 in terms of his on base, and Cody Clemens has actually been able to give you a 375 on base. What has been the strength of this Minnesota Twins team has been their pitching, and specifically the bullpen pitching. They're currently in the top 4 in the big leagues with regards to their bullpen ERAs. You've got Danny Kalum, who has yet to give up an earned run this far this season. Cole Sands has given you a sub-3 ERA. Griffin Jax has been getting all sorts of jacks up, but he's starting to be able to round into form a little bit more. And Yohan Duran, he has been tremendous for the team. He's been able to give you a sub-2 ERA, and then for the Tampa Bay Rays, it's not like this team has been doing some sort of amazing job with their lineup either. Bottom 7 team in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. You do have Brandon Lau, who's up to 10 home runs, but he's giving you just a 291 on base. He, Yandy Diaz, Junior Caminero, Cameron Misner, only between about a 230 to a 243. Caminero's up to 9 home runs, but again, 275 on base. Just have not been able to get a lot at the bottom of the fold. The entirety of the catcher spot, whether that be Ben Rotfit, along with also Danny Jansen, both hitting below the Bezos line 200. Christopher Morel is back to hitting at 200, not necessarily giving you a lot of power. Taylor Walls is giving you nothing. But this is a Tampa Bay Rays team that they're a top 8 team with regards to bullpen ERAs. You've had Eric Orze, Hunter Biggie, Manuel Rodriguez, Garrett Clevenger, Pete Fairbanks all be able to supply a sub 245 ERA. You've had a little bit of issue with the likes of a Cole Sulzer, but overall these guys have been able to do a nice job holding down the fort. So it's a very interesting circumstance here. I do think that you get a little bit of a lower scoring game, despite the fact that Zach Little, I think, is doing for a bit of regression. I did set my total at 8.6, so I'm in on the under, and I do like the Minnesota Twins right on the money line. 9-11, 9-12 on the betting board. The New York Yankees are going to be on the road against the LA Angels. Jack Conowitz is on the bump for the Halos. For the Yankees, it currently reads to be determined. Few places have put up an opener with the Yankees at a minus 160, plus 135 to plus 143. That number on the Halos. 9 is the total, but the over is minus 130 and the under is plus 110. I did set my total at 9.4. It's looking like we should get Ryan Yarbrough in this, whether that be as a starter or as a little bit of a bulk guy. And if you do get that, I'd be willing to take a shot on a Yankees run line. We are currently not seeing those up on the board, but I set mine at a minus 122. If you're seeing a minus 160 money line, that should come in well below a minus 120, but that's it for Ryan Yarbrough. He's actually looked relatively solid in his last 9 appearances. He's been getting right around 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, supplying a sub 230. He had a little bit of a rough start to the season, but in his last 4 appearances, a total of 5 runs. I recognize that one of those was just a 1-inning appearance, but all the other ones 3 2/3 innings or more. He is giving up a home run and a half per 9 innings, but swing and miss stuff is way up. He's been able to give the team 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and I just don't trust in Jack Conowitz whatsoever. This guy's getting 5.3 strikeouts and 4 walks per 9 innings. He is supplying an ERA that is a little bit north of 5, but that fielding dependent is actually up to about a 5.69, as he's been giving up about a home run and a half per 9 innings. And for the New York Yankees, they're going to have a little bit of a tough time coming down from elevation after they had the rain delay yesterday as well. But for the New York Yankees, this is the top run scoring team out in the American League. You had Aaron Judge, who's hitting darn near 400 right now with 18 home runs. Paul Goldschmidt is not giving you as much power this year, but he's giving you a 400 on base. You've been able to have Anthony Volpe pick it up a little bit. Yasan Dominguez along Cody Bellinger out there in the outfield, both give you between about a 330 to a 340 on base. Ben Rice has been able to give you 10 plus home runs. Trent Grisham has been able to give you 12 plus bombs. So all these guys are doing a nice job mixing and matching for the Yankees. This has been a upper half of the big league team with regards to their bullpen ERA. Luke Weaver has been incredible. Devin Williams has been anything but that. And Fernando Cruz lining on the injured list. That does hurt this team a little bit, but Mark Leiter Jr., Tim Hill, these guys have been able to give you some relatively solid innings, both supplying a sub 360 ERA. And for the LA Angels, this continues to be the team that is dead stinking last in the big leagues with regards to their bullpen ERA. Brian Zephyrion has been able to give you a sub 475 ERA, but then you've got the likes of a Brock and Roll Burke, Connor Brogdon, Jose Fermin, Reed Detmers, all these guys who are giving you well north of 5 ERA. Kenley Jansen is not necessarily trustworthy. And then for the LA Angels, you do have a lineup that's able to supply a lot of boom. Taylor Ward is up to 15 home runs this far this season, hitting just at 230, but he's up to 15 home runs. You've had Logan O'Hoppe supply 14 bombs. He's been able to give you about a 275 average. Zach Neto has done a nice job with line hitting about a 285 with his 8 home runs. Now, Kyron Paris, he's hitting below the Bedell line of 200. He and Joe Adell just are not giving you any average whatsoever, and you've been able to get 6 home runs apiece out of these two guys. So Nolan Schunel has been able to give you about a 380 on base as well. So it does lead to a little bit of an interesting circumstance. Do think that the Yankees get to Konowitz, and do think that Yarbrough actually gives you a good start. So if you're able to get a minus 120 or better, like that Yankees run line at a 9 or less, I'm in on the over. 913, 914 on the betting board. The Detroit Tigers play with the San Francisco Giants as Hayden Birdsong is on the bump for the Giants, and Carrillo Montero is on the bump for the Detroit Tigers. Most places have this game off the board, as we don't know if it's actually going to be a Montero or if there's going to be some sort of an opener or anything like that. Right now, in terms of the lone opener that I'm seeing, it's over at FanDuel. You've got the Tigers at minus 110, minus 106 on the Giants, and then 8.5 is the total. Over is at even money, and the under is at minus 122. And did somebody tell it at 8.4? So if we do get the 8.5, I'm going to be in on the under. I set the Tigers at a minus 117. Hayden Birdsong has been very good out of the bullpen thus far this season, and he's made a few starts. So you do have to wonder how that transition is going to be going, because last season Hayden Birdsong was pretty much exclusively a starter. He went in his first start 5 innings, so he's pretty much stretched out. He's been overall this season able to give you 9 strikeouts to 3 walks for 9 innings, a sub-2 ERA, but when he was a starter last year, more of a 4.75 ERA. I am a believer that when it comes to the role, that is something that is very important and that does impact a pitcher quite a bit. Meanwhile, for Montero, he's been a little bit better than he was 8 seasons ago. Certainly not a trustworthy guy for this Detroit Tigers team, as right now he is still supplying about a 5 ERA. Fielding independence more around about a 5.29, 6.2 strikeouts per 9 innings, giving up nearly 4 walks per 9. You just need a little bit more there. Now, the good news is the Detroit Tigers, since the All-Star break of the 2024 campaign, do have the number 1 bullpen in terms of ERAs. You've got so many guys that are able to mix and match. If you want to piggyback, you can have Brant Herter be able to do so, as he's able to lend that sort of innings. But I mean, you've got Tommy Canley, Will Vest, Chase Lee, all these guys that have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA and have been able to do a really good job in this bullpen. And for the Detroit Tigers, all of a sudden, you've got a top 4 team in terms of runs per game in the American League, as it's been Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green, and Kerry Carpenter really supplying the boom. All 3 of these guys have been able to give you a double-figure amount of homers. For Torkelson, hovering in that neighborhood about a 340 on base. Kerry Carpenter doesn't have quite the on base, but he's been able to hit north of a 280 for the team. And then Javi Baez, all of a sudden, not useless, as he's been able to give the team north of a 275 average. You've been able to get quite a few guys moving the line, like a Dylan Dingler who's hitting just below a 300. You've had some good production as well out of someone like an Andy Ibanez, who was able to come up big yesterday. So do like that. Gleyber Torres has been able to do a rock solid job as well. And then on the flip side, you do have yourself a San Francisco Giants team that's a little bit hit or miss with regards to their lineup. Now, they are number 1 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. So many guys that have been able to come up big. Camilo Duvall has been a revelation this year after he was so bad last season. Randy Rodriguez, obviously Birdsong used to be in the bullpen, but Tyler Rogers, all these guys are able to give you a sub-3 ERA. But for the Giants, it's been very rough what you've gotten out of Willie Adames. He's been only able to hit about a 290 in terms of that on base with not necessarily a ton of power, but Jungle Lee is hitting at 280 along with Eloy Ramos. 9+ home runs. You've had Mikey Yastrzemski supply about a 360 on base, and Matt Chapman only getting about a 216, but does have a 340 on base, has been able to give you some relatively solid power. So a little bit of an interesting circumstance here with the Tigers. I'd be willing to go up to a minus 117 on that money line, and at an 8.5 or higher, I'm going to be in on the under. 915, 916 on the betting board. The Milwaukee Brewers play us to the Boston Red Sox. Garrett Crochet is on the bump for the Sox, and Jad Patrick goes for the Brewers, and the Brewers are a underdog of between plus 130 to plus 136, minus 147 to minus 155 is that number on Boston. 7.5 is the total. The over and the under anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115. And right now, if you're looking at that run line of the Red Sox, you're finding at a plus 115. I would need closer to about a plus 130 or so. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, I could take a plus 138 or higher on the money line. Right now, we're seeing like a plus 136. If we could get up to the 3 pennies, which I think that we can, I would be willing to take a shot on the Brewers. As a matter of fact, we just saw a plus 139 pop up. So, could be in on the Brewers on the money line with Chad Patrick. Not a guy that's going to blow you away or anything like that, but I mean, he's been very solid ever since joining the starting rotation. He had that one relief appearance against the New York Yankees where he got banged around like a piñata, but in the role of a starter and a starter only. He's been supplying a sub-3 ERA, 7.5 strikeouts and 2.7 walks per 9 innings, so he's not going to completely blow you away or anything like that, but I just love what he's been able to provide for this team. And then for Crochet, his strikeout numbers are down a little bit from where they were a season ago, but he has been plenty effective, and he's been able to deliver tons of length, 7+ innings in 3 of his last 5 starts, 10.5 strikeouts to about 3 walks per 9, bucket 90-80 ERA, closer to 271 fielding dependent. And for the Boston Red Sox, they do need to stop the bleeding after losing a pair of games over the weekend to the Orioles, and for the Red Sox, they're going to be without Alex Bregman for quite some time, but to have Rafael Devers and Weiler Abreu both give you 12 home runs apiece. Abreu is giving you about a 340 in terms of that on base, and Rafael Devers north of 400 on base. Jordan Duran's been able to hit 280. He's starting to pick it up. Carlos Narvaez at the catcher spot has been able to hit 300. Christian Campbell, we're starting to see some regression with, and for the Red Sox, this is a bullpen that's neither here nor there. You've got a pair of guys in Brendan Bernardino, Aroldis Chapman, who are supplying a sub-2 area, but you never know when Aroldis Chapman fails you at the wrong time. Justin Slayton, Garrett Woodlock, both hovering right around about a 3.75 ERA, and Liam Hendricks has been having his struggles, to say the least. And for the Brewers, this has been a really awful bullpen this year. Like, they were number 1 in the National League in terms of bullpen ERA last season. Yoel Payam's, Elvis Figueroa have both been absolutely terrible when they've actually given them opportunities. Abner Uribe has been great, and they didn't even have him last season. He and Trevor McGill have both been able to give you a sub-225 ERA, but Grant Anderson, not necessarily a guy that you can trust in too much. Your Koenig has seen a bit of regression as well. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, not necessarily the world's greatest power rating team with Christian Yelich leading the way with 9 home runs, but it's barely hanging above the Mendoza line of 200. Reese Hoskins is starting to find that power. In Jackson Trio up to 7 home runs this season, and for our Hoskins, 390 on base. Team that is doing a good job moving the line, though, is we got quite a few guys that will be able to find a way to give you at least a 345 on base. Isaac Collins, throw in there William Contreras, Sal Frelick are on that full Bryce rank, more like a 340 on base, but is one of the better base stealers in all baseball. But do think that for the Brewers, they are able to do an okay job of being able to generate a little bit of offense here. I like the way that they're playing some station-to-station baseball. Semi-total 7.8, so at the 7.5 looking at the over. And for the Brewers at a plus 138 or higher, like their money line, 917, 918. On the betting board, the St. Louis Cardinals are on the road against the Baltimore Orioles. Charlie Morton is on the bump for the Orioles, and Eric Fetty Wap goes for St. Louis. 9.5 is the total. Under is minus 115. The over is minus 105. Baltimore is between minus 105 to a minus 110, and between minus 104 to minus 110 is that number on St. Louis. I really don't understand why this is a pick 'em. I set the Cardinals at a minus 144. I'm going to be willing to go on the money line for Charlie Morton. Just absolutely disgraceful this year. How about an 0-7 record, supplying an ERA that is hovering right around about a 7.80. He's been giving up north of 2 home runs per 9 innings. He's giving up north of 5 walks per 9 innings. Like, this has been absolutely terrible. And Eric Fetty, 370 ERA, 0.8 home runs per 9 innings allowed. I recognize that ever since he's come over from the KBO, his ERA on the road is about a full point higher than it is when he is at home. But still, you've got a Baltimore Orioles team that is in the bottom 7 in the big leagues in terms of run production. Just have not been able to get a lot of the deep ball whatsoever. Ryan O'Hearn has been able to give you 8 home runs. And I mean, for O'Hearn, he's giving you a 420 on base. You do like to see that. Dylan Carlson got his second hit of the year on Sunday. So, yay, verily, as he, Ore Mateo, Mr. Hanley, guys like this have been hitting a 220 or lower. Adley Rushman is hitting about a 215, so you need a bit more there. Jackson Alday, Gunnar Henderson, both hitting about a 265, but you're not getting a lot of power out of those guys, and the Orioles are in the bottom 6 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Ynier Cano, Gregory Soto, Sir Anthony Dominguez posting up north of 4 ERA. That's been an issue. You've got Felix Bautista, who's been pretty rock solid, and Brian Baker has been as well. He's been able to give you a sub-2 ERA, and for the St. Louis Cardinals, after a little bit of a wobbly start to the season for some likes of JoJo Romero Company, this bullpen has been able to round it form. Ryan Helsley has been one of the better closers in all baseball. You've been able to get some good production out of Kyle Leahy, Phil Matone, who've been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. John King, it's a little bit wobbly, but still, for the St. Louis Cardinals, even though you don't have a ton of power, Lars Nootbaar, your top home run hitter at 7 home runs, a lot of guys that they just find a way to be able to reach base. Brandon Donovan is sitting at 325. You've got Victor Scott hitting at 275. You've had Alec Burleson do a nice job being able to hit for about a 280 himself. It's been a little bit hit or miss in terms of some of these ancillary guys like a Nolan Gorman, whatever he's gotten at bats, has been a bit of an issue. But Ivan Herrera coming off the injured list, 5 bombs and 70 at bats, hitting for north of a 390. That's going to be a pop out this team, and I do think that for the Cardinals, they go out there, take it to the Orioles. I did set my total at 9.2. I think that Fetty gives a good start, so I had a 9.5. I like the under and set the Cardinals at a minus 144. I like them on the money line. 919, 920 on the betting board. The Chicago White Sox hit the road. They're facing off against the New York Mets. Clay Holmes goes for the Metropolitans, and Adrian, don't call him Doogie Howser, is on the bump for the White Sox. 8.5 is the total. Under is minus 115. The over is minus 105. Minus 290 to minus 305 is that number on the Metropolitans, and in between plus 240 to plus 260 is that number on the White Sox. I'm a schmuck. I'm going to do it. Plus 237 or higher. I'm in on the White Sox money line. Adrian Hauser, 6 scoreless innings to begin the season. Now, I recognize that AAA Round Rocky wasn't necessarily doing the world's greatest job with his pitching, and Hauser's never really been a swing and miss guy. He's never really been able to give you more than like 7 or so strikeouts per 9 innings. He gives up hard contact. He used to play for the Mets, so there's a little bit of familiarity there, but this has just gone a little bit extreme, and I do think that Clay Holmes is going to be able to give you a good start as well. He's right now busting up 3.13 ERA, 0.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings, just under 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, going up against the Chicago White Sox lineup that has been leaving a lot to be desired. They're currently in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of runs per game, as having Andrew Benintendi out of the fold has really not been helping out this team. And initially, you just take a look at these guys that are not able to move the line. Edgar Quiero, he's been able to hit north of a 250, so that's been able to give you a little bit of something. But Michael A. Taylor, I believe that they picked up Vinny Capra from the Milwaukee Brewers, Benintendi, who they just got back, Luis Robert, Andrew Vaughn, all these guys hitting at 220. That's been a big issue. They got Mike Tauchman back. That's good, but yeah, this is not necessarily great. Chase Meredith has actually been able to give you a bit of something as well. And for the Chicago White Sox, this is a bottom 8 team with regards to bullpen ERA. Just have not been able to get a lot of guys to be able to supply a sub-4 ERA. Brandon Iser, Cam Bouger, Jordan Leisure, these guys have not given you a ton, though. Mike Vasil, as a long guy, has actually been very good for this unit. And then on the flip side for the New York Mets, this is a top 10 team with regards to bullpen ERA, but they're coming off of Sunday Night Baseball. That's always very impactful, and that's a big reason why I did downgrade them a little bit here. You've got Reed Garrett, who's been able to give you a sub-2 ERA. Jose Buto as a long guy, along with Oscar Brazobin, have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. And then you've got Brandon Nimmo dealing with a little bit of an injury. You've got most of the main guys who should be out there. Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, both being able to give you north of 350 on base, both at 9+ home runs this season. Juan Soto, I know a lot of people like to hate on him, but still, 370 on base with 8 home runs. It's not like it's been a terrible start to the season. Luan Acuna, not giving you any power, but he's been able to move the line. And then you've had Starling Marte have a pretty miserable start to the season. So, circumstance where with Hauser, I do think that he's being a little bit undervalued here. Plus 240 or higher. Won't take a shot on that money line. And made by total 7.7. I like the under. 921, 922 on the betting board. The Cincinnati Reds, and yes, we're on to Cincinnati. They're facing off against the Kansas City Royals, as Michael Lorenzen is on the bump for the Royals, and Nick Martinez goes for the Cincinnati Reds. And the Reds do find themselves as a underdog of between even money to plus 109, right around minus 118 to minus 120. That number on Kansas City. 8 is the total. Over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. For the Royals, I've set them at a minus 134. I'm going to be willing to dive in on the money line. For both of these pitchers, they're relatively similar in terms of their raw ERAs. Right now, for Michael Lorenzen, a 3.77 ERA. He's been posting up a fielding independence a little bit north of a 4.2, as he's giving up 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. Not some sort of strikeout artist, about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Either is Nick Martinez. Nick Martinez, between 6.5 and 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, a 3.43 ERA with about 0.6 home runs allowed per 9 innings, but his ERA does shoot up to about a 4.18 when he's away from him. And these two bullpens, they have been going on a little bit of a different trajectory. For the Cincinnati Reds, they got banged around like a piñata on Sunday. Meanwhile, on Sunday, the Kansas City Royals, they were able to get the job done, as for the Reds, they now have a 4.11 bullpen ERA. That is 18th in the big leagues, as Graham Ashcraft has not been a load of Ashcraft. He's been able to do a nice job being able to give this team a sub-3 ERA, and I do like what Taylor Rogers has been able to give this team as well. He's been able to spy a sub-3 ERA. Tony Santillan has been relatively solid, but Emilio Pagan, just a guy that I have absolutely no faith in whatsoever. Louis May, guys like that are relatively rough, and for the Cincinnati Reds, this has been one of the best run-scoring teams in the big leagues on the road this year, but that's a very warped number because they had that 24th spot that they put up against the Orioles earlier in the season. Elliot De La Cruz has been able to give you 9 home runs, hitting about a 250, and we got TJ Friedel, Gavin Lux, both hitting at least a 280. Both of these guys north of 365 on base, so love that. Santiago Espinal has been able to do an okay job moving the line, hitting about a 265 as well, and his team has gotten a little bit of production as well. Whenever Austin the Say's kid has been out there on the field, he's been able to give the team north of a 300 average, 6 home runs in a small sample size, so you do like to be able to see that. And then on the flip side, you've got a bunch I think is going to be able to get a little bit more offense moving forward for the Royals. You've got a pair of guys in Bobby Witt Jr. along with Miguel Garcia, both give you 5 home runs apiece, both hitting at least a 299. Vinny Pasquantino is now hitting about a 250 with 8 home runs, so you do like to see that. Had a lot of rough bats out there in the lineup though. Kevon Biggio, Hunter Renfroe are a pair of veterans hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Salvador Perez, 261 on base with 3 home runs. You just expect more there, but again, this is a Royals team that is in the top 5 in terms of bullpen ERA. You've had a pair of guys in Carlos Aceves, Lucas Urcich do a really good job in the back half of games, give you about a 2 ERA. John Schreiber, a sub-3 ERA. Steven Cruz has been rock solid. Daniel Lynch has been able to get the job done as well, so I do think that this is going to be a little bit of a lower scoring game, despite the fact that you don't necessarily have amazing starting pitching. Now, I did sell it at 8.2. I think that we've gone just a scotch too low. I am going to be willing to take a shot on the over, but for the Royals, set that amount as minus 134, like their money line, and we're wrap things up with 923, 924 on the betting board. It is the Cleveland Guardians playing us to the LA Dodgers as Yoshinobu Yamamoto goes for the Dodgers and Gavin Williams is on the bump for Cleveland. 8 is the total, under is minus 115, the over is minus 105, and for the Dodgers, between minus 175 to minus 190 is that number on them, plus 154 to plus 158 is the number on the Guardians. I actually am going to take a shot on the Guardians money line. I did set this at a plus 144 for Yamamoto. I think that he's going to go out there and it's going to give a really good start for Yamamoto. He's been able to do that all throughout his big league career as he's been able to supply this team with a .186 ERA this season. Had that one rough start against the Arizona Diamondbacks, so he has been a little bit lesser on the road rather than at home, but he's given up 5.5 hits per 9 innings, 10.5 strikeouts to 3 walks per 9 innings. Here's the issue that you do have with the Dodgers, though. For one, they're going to be coming off of Sunday Night Baseball, and that's always going to take a little bit out of you. And for two, this bullpen is right around about league average, 3.95 ERA. They've had to mix and match with so many different injuries. Michael Kopech is still out of the fold for the team. Blake Trinan is currently on the injured list. You don't have Broussard or Graterol, so the likes of Ben Casparis, Jack Dreher, who both been able to give you sub 3.5 ERA. They see more innings. Alex Vesia has been pretty solid for this bullpen as well. And then for the LA Dodgers, this is one of the more fearsome lineups that you're going to find in all baseball because you got a guy by the name of Shohei Ohtani who's been able to give you 17 home runs and he's giving you about a 390 on base. Andy Paz has really stepped up for the team as well. He, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, all between 8 and 9 home runs apiece, and Freeman 420 on base, Paz hitting about a 270, and for Mookie Betts, a little bit down with his 340 on base, but still has been rock solid, especially when you compare him to Michael Conforto, who's hitting a $167. Max Muncy has been a little bit rough as well, but on the flip side, you do have a bunch in the Cleveland Guardians, of which we've seen the bullpen start to regress for them. A little bit of Emmanuel Clase now posting up north of a 4 ERA. You've had Tim Aaron not be the guy that he was last season, and you've had on the bereavement list Hunter Gaddis the last few days, and he's been really their top reliever, so that means a little bit more Cade Smith. Now, ever since they brought in Matthew Festa, he's been able to do a pretty rock solid job, and the top of the lineup for the Cleveland Guardians has been solid. They're dealing with a little bit of an injury to Carlos Santana, but you've got Jose Ramirez along with Steven Kwan, both hitting above a 300, and Ramirez is up to 9 home runs this season. Gonzalez is not hitting for any average whatsoever, but he gives you 10 bombs, and then got quite a few guys towards the bottom of the lineup that you just need a bit more average out of him. Daniel Schneemann has been able to give about a 340 on base with 6 home runs and 110 at-bats, but Bo Naylor, even though he's been able to supply some homers, Austin Edges, backup catcher, got John Kensey, Noel, Brian Rocchio, guys like this, hitting at 200 or lower, that's a little bit of an issue, but I do think that the hate has gone a little bit too far on the Guardians. I do think that for Gavin Williams, he's going to start to hone in and is going to be able to find it a little bit more for Gavin Williams this season. Has been posting up an ERA right around about a 394. That fielding dependent, it's more in that neighborhood about a 422. 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but the 5 walks per 9, that has been a little bit of an issue, but I do think that with this big of a plus number with the Dodgers having to come off of Sunday Night Baseball, that's gone a little bit too far. I'm going to be able to take a shot on the Guardians on the money line, and I like the under. I set my total at 7.9, and that'll wrap things up for the Monday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Dylan Rockford of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, do have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they meet us on matter, so per usual, please send these into the timeline, and the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire whatever you like here on this podcast side, that 5-star review, coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.